Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm here to speak a little bit about my first awakening and my father's death. Especially because today is 13th of May of 2024 is his death anniversary since he passed away 12 years ago. And the two experiences are very, very connected, and I'll share everything why and how painful it was. And let's see how I'm gonna do with this video. If you connect with any of this content and you want to learn more about grief recovery and you have any questions about how I did it, how I was able to surpass the situations in my life, and you have any comments or any situations that you had that were similar to this, please leave a comment below. If you feel like this is going to help somebody else, please subscribe and send them the video and keep watching. Today's May 13th, and it's been 12 years since my father passed away and my first awakening. And the reason I want to talk to you today about this story is, first of all, I want to be able to share my story, and I don't think I've ever shared this story publicly before. And I want to also set the stage for a lot more stories that are to come on why I'm going to be doing what I'm going to be doing in the future as a spiritual teacher, and why I can do it because I've been going through a lot in my life. So I really want to focus on delivering some really important material here, for especially because my heart is a little heavy, and it's been heavy for a few months now, and I'm in a process of deep alchemy of, like, dark night of the soul, you may call it. And I've been uh ups and downs in my emotions, and it hasn't been easy, and my life is not like woo like it always is. Like, some people think, woo, my life is incredible, and it has been incredible. And now I'm in a place of standstill, and I'm a little bit confused on what's happening, and I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best, but it's not always easy. And today is not an easy day, because I want to tell you that my whole life I was very intellectual about a lot of things, and I thought very deep thoughts about a lot of things, but to actually feel the feelings was something that I didn't even know, but I didn't allow myself to feel the feeling. And so this is how I want to share the story on how my father passed away 12 years ago. Because 12 years ago, more or less, I was living in Monaco, living my best life in Monaco. I had the scooter, I had the cute little apartment, the cute outfits, and I worked in an office with very good looking men. Hi, everybody. Hi, hi, hi. Hello, hello. Oh, there's some people here. I love it. So I was working in an office in Monaco and living a really good life until my dad called me one day and said, "Hey, I have cancer, and maybe it's a good idea that you come back to Brazil and you hang out with me for a little bit." And I was just shocked, because my dad had cancer before, but like, he healed it. It was easy. It was like in a few months he was done. It was good. So this time he sounded serious on the phone, and I, little did I know, I didn't know anything about cancer back then. But let me tell you already the spoiler alert, because it's in the title. He died. Cancer, when it comes the second time, it comes to kill. And I hope it's not like this for everybody, but at least it was the statistic, and my dad belonged to that statistic because he did die the second time. And so, growing up, I was always very curious, and I was always asking a lot of questions. And my dad was very patient with me, answering all my questions. And he was such a good sport. Every time I had some crazy idea of what to do, a new game, I remember like throwing water balloons to kids on school in Portugal. He would just drive me around with the water balloons. He would always join my play, and he was a child himself. So he was my best friend. And growing up, my dad was always there for me. And no, he wasn't perfect. There's a lot of issues about our relationship that left big scars in my psychology, my psyche. And but he passed away. So it's not like I can go to him and talk about these things now, but I have done all my inner work about forgiving him. But what I really want to share is that the moment he called me and he said he had cancer, I hesitated because I didn't really know what to do at the time. But honestly, my heart just went for, okay, I'll leave my life behind. I'll leave everything about Monaco. I thought it was gonna be just a couple of months. I thought I was just gonna take a summer vacation in Brazil, and I left everything and I went to Brazil to. Hello, hello, hello. I went back to Brazil to help my dad with his cancer. And I didn't know what it was gonna happen. I didn't know what I had to do. And when I got there, the first few months, he was fine and I was fine. So we had a lot of good time. We enjoyed each other's company, and everything was just easy until I started seeing that he didn't look so at ease, with life, and he couldn't eat everything. And I started taking a little bit of a responsibility about his medicine and other things that he had to do to heal from cancer. So I started driving him to chemotherapy 2, 3 times a week. And I started seeing like he had to get needles in his arms all the time. And it was pretty painful to see somebody you really love going through a process like this, it's painful, it's physically painful. And he had to take a lot of medicine, a lot of pills on like disciplined times. And there was a big protocol, and he was always sick after chemotherapy with fever and all these things. So it was not easy. It was not easy. And what was supposed to be a month turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 4. And eventually I realized that this was a longer process than I was expecting, but my dad was going to survive, and I was going to make sure of it, that he was going to get out of it alive. And that was my mission. So within these months, he was very open and very curious, like I was, to do a lot of alternative healing, and hence the awakening starts. We went to we went to a lot of different types of healers. Every week he would had like mud massage or chromotherapy, or we would do like family constellation, and we would do astrology. And every time he was doing something for his own healing, I would join in and have my own consultation too. So that's when I started learning about myself through astrology and through family constellation, through past lives. Even like one time, I got revealed on one of his consultations. Like somebody looked at my arm because it's like I have this birthmark, and said, "Oh my God, you were either burned in a fire as a witch, or somebody in your family died of like hot water, which is such a weird death." And let me tell you, it was very true. It was somebody in my family did die. Like I had a great grandfather that drove a train machine, like a old train, and he flipped the train, and then the boiling water fell all over him. So all of these mysterious things started getting revealed to me, and before I was totally unaware of any of this. And this is like the 2000s, early 2000s, so there's not a lot being talked about these mysterious things. I was very curious. I was always trying to understand more. And actually, when I was 23, I was gifted a book called The Power of Now. So that was a very important book in my life, and it shifted my thinking a lot. Actually, I could say that that was like a first mini awakening. But I still, like, I don't remember reading that book, and I don't remember having the impact that a shock like my father's death really had on me. And so I was taking care of my dad. We were going to therapy, to astrology, to all these other things. And I started introducing him also to meditation, because in this journey, in this mission to rescue my father from dying from cancer, I was researching like a maniac everything about cancer. So I knew exactly what he had to eat. I knew exactly how he had to think. I knew exactly what to do, blah, 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 blah. And we were trying everything at the same time: the lemon healing, the macrobiotic diet, vegan, meditation, yoga, you name it, like anything that was healing. We even went to saints and to John of God, and we went to people with magnets, people with mushrooms. I just didn't know about ayahuasca at that time, or I don't know, drugs or like medicine that was hallucinogenic. Otherwise, I would have suggested that to my dad. We were just trying to do all the natural healing things. And so that lasted about 4 months, up until the point that his doctor, his oncologist, had a consultation with us, and he was really losing a lot of weight very fast. And she said something on the terms of, there's nothing else I can do. He's in the red line. And I was just, oh, hello. Thank you, Nilo. And I was just, hi, Nilo. Um, I was shocked and I didn't know what that meant, but in my head it did not mean he was gonna die. For sure it did not mean that. In my head it meant that we needed to double down on the efforts to do more therapy, to do more meditation, to do more, like healthier eating, drink more water. Rah, imagine the stress I was going through. And finally I was very desperate. The people who know me from Facebook, I was asking for help. I was asking for prayer. I was really on a mission, like life or death, honestly, literally. And so finally, I discovered there was a really good cancer hospital in Porto Alegre, which wasn't that far. And I packed my dad's bags. I packed my bag, and off we went on an airplane to Porto Alegre to save my dad finally and put him in a hospital. Which now, looking back, was not a good decision. I would have rather have had like an ending that was more dignified, but I didn't know. I just thought hospital is gonna save him, something's gonna save him, somebody's gonna save him. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And I was in this let's go mode. And I honestly I wish I had spent more time honoring him and talking to him and just being kind to him instead of being like this sergeant that needed to save his life. And uh, so we went to the hospital, and of course, as soon as we arrived in the hospital, they looked at him, and he was neon at the time. Just I couldn't see. He was neon and skinny. And I, of course, could not see the state of my own father because I was in denial. And that he got admitted immediately, and he got admitted into like the intensive care. And that's when I realized, oh shit, this is actually getting serious now. I mean, really? But why intensive care? He's fine. Oh my God, my denial, I don't know if anybody had a parent die, but you never imagine that your father, your best friend, is ever gonna die. And so the doctor was very kind and an asshole to say to me, "Oh, your father is such a bad condition. He's not gonna live to see tomorrow." And imagine hearing that, like, still in denial and hearing something like this. Like my heart was on the floor. How can he be that my father is gonna not be alive tomorrow? That's impossible. It's not that, no, that's impossible. And so we go to the hospital, we go to intensive care, and it's all very fuzzy to me, like machines and things and stuff going on. And I was just trying to be present, but I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing back then. I was just there, like lost, like a lost abandoned puppy person. And so I did my best, but luckily, no, not luckily, like I was kind of relieved that the responsibility of medication and treatments were taken away from me because I was very exhausted. But I was sleeping in the hospital with my dad every night in the intensive care. They didn't let me, but then they put him in a room, like a normal room, so I would sleep in the hospital. And I don't know if anybody has ever slept in a hospital, but every 3 hours there's somebody coming by. They turn on the lights to measure the body, whatever sensations, the fever or the heartbeat. And so you cannot really sleep in a hospital one night. And I was sleeping in the couch, so it was like a whole month of non-sleep. I was sleep deprived. I was losing my father. I was unhappy. I was feeling powerless, and I was really, really, really like skinny and distraught. But I still believed my father would survive. So I was talking to him, I was reading for him, we would play cards, we would watch movies. And he was so, so kind to me. He was just an angel, so patient to me at the time. I was nervous. And I think he knew. I think he knew. I believe he knew because he was just so calm about everything. And then I heard that John of God was in town, and I think you guys know about John of God. He's very famous medium and healer and psychic from Brazil that became like Oprah went to see him, all those movie people went to see him, and then he went into a scandal where he was like sexually abusing people. And I can tell more about that later because I had some interesting experience in that situation. But focusing on my dad, I remember staying in line for 12 hours in a cold city, like in the mountains in Brazil, waiting to see this John of God so he could save my father. And John of God at the time said, "Oh, I'll take an eye at your father, just make him drink water, and I want to see you again when you come to Abadiania." And I'm like, I'm never going to Abadiania. I ended up going to Abadiania. It's a city where he was from. And so John of God gave my dad water, this holy water. And so I went to give my dad water, and at this moment, he wasn't drinking any more water. Only if it was a wet button in his mouth, and he would just suckle on it because I think the cancer and the chemotherapy burns everything inside. So I think my dad was going through a lot of pain, but he didn't want to show it to me. And the months were passing by, and finally May arrives, and it's my birthday month. My birthday is May 31st, and I'm like, okay, well, now you're gonna give me a birthday gift, Dad. You're gonna be alive. And my mom came finally to see me. And at the time, she and my dad were separate, so it's not like she was truly involved. She was very involved the first time he had cancer, so she kind of had done her part, and she had let me do my part this time, so I can't blame her because it's very intense. If anybody has ever had a family member with cancer or dying with a terminal disease, you will know. And so, um, my mom came, and it was the last night that my dad was awake. And that was the first night that I was able to sleep because my mom was taking care of my dad, and apparently they had some kind of like final conversation or something. And the next morning, I remember being rested. So I was calm and I was more relaxed. And my dad was sitting at the bed, and there was this light coming from the window, and I had never seen that light before. And he looked really like beautiful in that light, even though he was skinny and neon. He looked beautiful in that light, and he said, "I want to ask you a question, my dear daughter." And I'm like, "Okay, yes, Dad. What is it?" "What will you do if I die?" And what will you do if I die? And I was just in shock because up until this moment, of course, he was not going to die. In my mind, he was never going to die. And this was the first moment that I realized that he was going to die. And like, there's nothing I could do about it. I was not expecting to cry because I have told this story many times to other people. But anyhow, I'm feeling my feelings. So my dad asked me this question, and I said, Dad, I don't know. At this moment, I wasn't spiritual. I wasn't awakened. I didn't think about life after death. I didn't think about anything. I didn't have any questions. Well, I had questions, but I didn't have the answers to any of these things, or it wasn't what I was seeking at the time. But um, thanks to this question, I was able to look deep within me and say, okay, well, I know what you're gonna do once you get out of this hospital alive. We're gonna go to India to meditate, but first we're gonna go to Portugal, eat some really good Portuguese food, and then after India, we can go around the world, and then we can buy a vintage car and fix it, and then we can live in Portugal, and we can do so many things. And I remember him like just laughing and smiling, like, okay, that's never gonna happen. And then I said, and if you die, I think we're gonna do the same things, but in a different way. And I don't really know, but I feel like you're gonna be with me anyhow, and I will be very grateful to know in which way we're gonna do this together. And you will let me know. Okay. And he was like, okay. And so he started like thanking me for being such a great daughter that I was. And he was mentioning all the trips that we had done together and all the good times that we had and how he loved me so much. And it was a very beautiful moment. And then I had to leave the hospital for whatever reason. I went to buy something to eat or something like that. And that was the last time I spoke to my dad alive, because when I came back, he was in coma. And he had had some kind of like seizure, and they put him in sorry, in an induced coma. So after that, it was still another month of him being in coma in the intensive care, and me going every day in the 3 schedules. Oh, so actually, I don't know. The calculation of my timing may be off. I just remember he was in coma for a month. So maybe it was like Easter when we had the last talk or something like that. So details. He was in coma for about a month, and the doctors just kept saying to me, he's gonna pass away today. He's gonna pass away today. Every day he was gonna pass away. Every day. So his liver failed, his kidney failed, like all of his body started shutting down. Thank you. Oh, thank you. All of his body started shutting down little by little, organ by organ. And there I was every day. I was like praying, doing Reiki, and I didn't know any of these things back then. I was just like pretending to do Reiki or like praying, please God, and like despair totally. I was blessing him. I was with classical music, chromotherapy, with wands, with I don't know what I had, essential oils. I was doing my best to keep my dad alive. And May was there, and I'm like, oh my God, Dad, you're gonna die in my birthday month, and you're gonna die on my birthday. Oh my God, please don't do that. So that was kind of like a little funny moment there. But yeah, May 13th arrived, and it was a Sunday, and it was Mother's Day. And my dad was always very attached to his mother, but she died when he was 4, so he had a big pain. And it was also Fatima Day, in Portugal. And my dad loved Portugal. So I kind of had a clue that today would be the day that he would pass away, because Fatima, the saint, the mother, would come and take it. But at the time, I wasn't a believer of any of this. I was just believing whatever I could believe to help him survive. I wouldn't believe something to take him away. So I wasn't really believing in any of these things. And so it was the last visiting moment, and it ended at 8, and about like 3 minutes to 8, this lady, this nurse that I never seen before, and I knew all the nurses there because I was there every day. She came to me, she goes, "Hi, my darling, you're gonna have to let your father go now, because he's only here because of you, and you're gonna have to say goodbye to him for real." And I was not as shocked, but I was it's like jumping off a cliff. So I sat beside my dad, and I held his hand, and he was in the machines, and everything was normal and fine. And I remember holding his hand and saying, "Okay, okay, Dad, apparently you have to go, and I think I will be fine. I mean, I'm sure I will be fine, and it's all gonna work out great. Your body's not working anymore, so you have to go. You have to go. I'm so sorry. I tried my best, but you have to go." And let me tell you that within 2 seconds of me finishing what I had to say, the machine went flat. So it was like, beep, and he totally passed away holding my hand. And looking back, I'm honored at the experience, because this was the moment I had in my life to decide that I was going to go bitter or I was going to believe in God, because this was not a positive situation. And I was too numb to make that decision right there and then. But some kind of peace came to me, and I was able, and I call it peace, but maybe it was just some kind of like PTSD or trauma, that I was able to just cry but keep my calm in a sense, because as soon as this happened, all these people came into the room. a lot of noise. Okay, they didn't reanimated him because they knew. And so they take me to the main room to sign his death certificate. And I just remember like it was 2:30 in the morning the same night, and I'm looking at coffins to bury my father. And I had to choose a coffin amongst like 10 coffins, and I had to choose how he was going to be buried because he was going to be buried the next day. I don't know how it works in Brazil that they're like in such a hurry, but the next day at 3 p.m. in his birth town, 3 hours away, was going to be his burial. And I was the one responsible for everything, all of the paperwork. And let me tell you, I mean, it was a surreal experience. And I think the only way I was able to do any of that was by being out of my body and just being in utter shock. And I don't think I've ever went back there. I need to go sit and meditate on this to really feel all the feelings that I was having, because once you're I was exhausted. I was just exhausted. And so I did it. I picked a coffin. We organized everything. I see a request here, but right now I can't because I'm gonna finish my story here and then I'll open for questions. And so I was able to organize everything. And at 6:30 in the morning, there I was in the car with an aunt and an uncle that was around that were driving me and the funeral car behind us, driving my dad for 3 hours. I had to see the funeral car behind me driving my dad. And that was like an endless night and day. And so we went to the funeral, the we say velório in Portuguese. I don't know how it is. To bury my father. Okay, so then the whole family's there and they're all talking to me. Oh my God, how are you? How are you? And all I remember is like, please, nobody talk to me. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm terrible. My father just died. Stop asking this stupid question. How are you? And so I was angry, exhausted, sad, and I don't remember much more about that day. It's like a blur, a fuzz, I don't know. Anyhow, but that was my first shock of awakening, because after death I was after death of my dad, and after that I was in Brazil for 3 months, and I was just in bed for 3 months. I was just exhausted and depressed and sad, and I didn't want to do much, just barely ate. But I remember within these 3 months, I was having a lot of downloads and a lot of revelations, and somehow my mind had opened to God. And I remember just getting messages and messages and having to write them and understanding things that I didn't understand before. So I had a rush of um awareness that I never had access to before. And so I'm very grateful for my father to passing away, but in his passage, he introduced me to God. And ever since that day, I've been building a relationship with God, with the unseen, with the universe, and I've been on a spiritual path thanks to my father's death, because after he passed away and I received all these downloads and all these messages, I could never be the same. That, you know, some things in your life change you, and some things in your life fully transform you. It was like alchemizing. That Livia that existed before could never ever again exist. And so I was very humbled by the experience. And then 3 months went by, and I knew I had to fulfill the thing I said to my dad. So I booked myself to go to a retreat in India, a Vipassana retreat, a 10-day meditation retreat, in silence, without a phone, without books, without anything. And this was going to be my first time actually attempting meditation, like for real, not just like a community class, but like 10 days in silence in a meditation retreat. And because they accepted me in India, I decided to go around the world and do all these things that I said to my dad that I would do with him. And I remember very clearly, okay, I'm gonna go to Portugal, eat my sorrows away, and I had a great time there. And I was just in a joy moment, Once I lived that grief for 3 months, and mind you, I had no support, no therapy, so I obviously didn't do a really good grief recovery work. I didn't really went into my feelings that much. I was just resting, and I feel like if I knew back then what I know now, I would have helped me a lot more, and I would have loved to have a mentor or a teacher in a process that is this difficult to understand. It was an awakening. It wasn't just pain. And I feel like because a lot of these moments that are so complex in our lives, we don't really deal with the pain fully. The pain is still there, festering. And now I'm dealing with all of the pain that I didn't deal before. And it's very dark. I'm in a very, very dark period of my life. But from the darkness comes the light, and every sunrise comes from the darkest moment of the night. And so we learn with nature that these are cyclical processes, and I was able to accept my father's death as a blessing to me, and I was able to be grateful for having him in my life. And I remember going to Egypt, and thanks to him I did a whole around the world tour, which was amazing at like 31. And I went to from here, from Brazil, I went to Portugal, I went to Spain, I went to Italy, I went to Egypt all alone with a little suitcase. I had no money, so I was booking all these like one-way low costs, and I was going wherever it was cheaper until I would get to India. And I was booking like night flights, so I would save the money on the hotel on that night. And so I had all these strategies to travel on a budget alone, and I had only like one bikini, light outfits. I ended up with more suitcases at the end of the trip, of course, because I went to India and bought a whole bunch of stuff. But in the beginning, I was just really carrying a carry-on. And so from Egypt, I think I went to Dubai, I went to Malaysia, and then I went to India. I don't, something like this. I need to look at the map. And in India, I stayed 20 days, and 10 days I stayed in a Vipassana retreat, which was amazing. I did my own eat, pray, love trip, but I ate in Portugal and Italy. And there was no love in the trip. It was just eat and pray. What can I do? And so I went to India and meditated, and this 10-day meditation retreat, Vipassana, again, was a big shock. I was revealed so much. I had this the light, the bang that they call. Imagine meditating 10 days in silence without, like, from 4:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night every day, with two breaks to eat and very little eating. There it was very precarious in India. There was no shower, there was only a faucet. I only had hot water 5 minutes a day. Everything else was cold water. The bathroom was a hole on the floor. So it was very interesting to sleep on the floor in India. That definitely humbled me. And I have a lot to tell about that story. But moving on, after India, I went to Bali, and I remember so clearly, I rented this scooter, and I tied my suitcase in the back of the scooter, and I'm running around Bali alone. And this time there was no iPhone, so it's not like I had a GPS. I was looking for a hotel that I had booked before, and it was getting late, and I was getting scared, and I was in this road in Bali not knowing what was happening. And I heard my father laughing at me, like, oh my God, what an adventure. And I could feel it in my heart that he was there with me, and he was there with me throughout the whole trip. And nowadays, I feel his presence very deeply in my heart. And there's still a lot that I've been working on in healing my relationship with my father, because that's the masculine in us. And I've been working a lot on healing my inner relationship with my father, because growing up as a child, you're not really understanding everything that's going on. So you create a lot of assumptions and a lot of beliefs and a lot of hurts and a lot of traumas. And these things, they have a way at blocking us from the things that are ours. And I've experienced a lot of blocks from from the masculine. And even last year, I realized I was diagnosed with a benign cyst on my right ovary that was really a cyst about masculine, not trusting the masculine. And no, I didn't trust my dad. And so I've been doing a lot of inner work about that, and it hasn't been over yet. But today I had a great revelation about my dad, and this is why I'm sharing this story here, because I want to share more and more up and coming, because I need to also show you how I recovered from all of these things and how I was able to transform all this pain into my powers and into my blessings. And very humbly, I want to do it little by little. I know that I haven't been the most consistent spiritual teacher on Instagram, but I'm doing my best, and I'm on my process of growth, and I'm figuring out so many ways to heal a broken heart, a heart that has been affected by a loved one's death, or loss, or any other kind of experience that it's conflicting feelings and deep inside the heart. So more and more I'm connecting to my heart and really going through more and more awakenings. And so thank you for being here, for witnessing my journey here. I hope you got something out of this story. And if you are going through something similar and you want to reach out, I'll be happy to share with you. Only somebody that has had a death knows how it feels. So if you want to share anything, I'm open and willing to connect. And just gonna say thank you and say that, a lot of people go through a lot of shocks, and we don't understand what an awakening is and what actually is other things like depression, like sadness or bipolar or whatever. There's so many mental terms, mental health terms, to things that may be the result of an opening up of consciousness, of going to next levels of consciousness. And normally, to go to next levels of consciousness, it requires a shock. And the best way to navigate a very hard situation is to have support. Not only support of your loved ones, of people that know you and love you and are there for you, but support from people that have been on that journey. Support from people that have navigated rough waters with some kind of tools or some kind of understanding, or people that just have been there just because they have. And if you can have teachers and mentors and coaches in your journey and to navigate the rough waters, bonus points, bling bling bling, to learn the lessons as soon as possible and pass through the darkness and go through to towards the light in the tunnel, in the end of the tunnel. It's a blessing, and to learn these lessons, it's a blessing, and to live this life is a blessing, but it's pretty intense. And so I'm alive. I'm surviving my dark night of the soul. And hopefully, not hopefully, but I'm coming. There's a lot. And so, oh, wow. Yes, carnival. So the darkest hour is the exact hour before the sun rises. And this is why I've been going every day to see the sunrise, just to remind myself that even though I'm in a dark spot, doesn't mean I'm going to stay here forever. And my light is going to shine brighter as soon as I connect with the lesson, with the learning, with the lightness. And it's always good to go down to the dark spots of your life, of your psychology, because as you go there, you illuminate it. And the more light you have on your brain, on your consciousness, on your awareness, the more you can become a magical being, and you can become a contribution to other people. And we all want a earth full of magical beings. And so with this, I thank you and I say goodbye. If anybody has any questions, this is the time. And if not, I'll see you soon with my other 10 awakenings. If you like this, give it a like and tell me what else you would like to know. Bye. Thank you. And if you need any other kind of support, I'll leave my links for my social media below, and you can reach out and let's have a talk. Thank you. Bye.